Broadcasting live from somewhere in the Shadow Realm, this is YuGiOh Deck Talk. Here's your host, Doug Dimmaduel.
Hey there, and welcome to another episode of YuGiOh Deck Talk. Today, we're jumping back on the Ancient Gear deck train, and we're going to go take a look at a few of the more basic combos that really make this deck so competitive when you're out at your local tournament, or even if you're trying to go for a long shot at your upcoming regional event. Now, granted, some of these cards are not included in the recent Ancient Gear structure deck that came out back in April. And I'll just touch upon a few of the ones that are not in that structure deck that I personally use to run this type of deck that make it a little bit more competitive. But the first one is a fusion monster, Ancient Gear Howitzer. It's a level 8 fusion, 1000 attack, 1800 defense. It requires 2 Ancient Gear monsters. It's unaffected by other cards' effects, and its effect is during your main phase, you can inflict 1000 damage to your opponent. And you can only use this effect once per turn. And if this card is destroyed by a battle and sent to the graveyard, you can special summon 1 Ancient Gear monster from your deck, ignoring its summoning conditions. So, this card can burn your opponent on multiple different ways. The first way, of course, is that 1000 damage that's built in with its initial effect. So, basically what you want to do is get this card onto the field, deal that 1000 damage to your opponent, and if you're not in your first turn, say if you're in any turn after that, and your opponent's got a pretty strong monster in attack, maybe they don't want to necessarily attack your Ancient Gear Howitzer, knowing that you'd be able to special summon another Ancient Gear monster from your deck without any summoning conditions. So, what you would do is take a little bit of a hit. So, just run your Ancient Gear Howitzer into an opponent's monster. It ends up being destroyed by battle that way. After it gets sent to the graveyard, you activate its effect and basically, have at it. You could go out there and special summon an Ancient Gear Reactor Dragon or an Ancient Gear Hydra. Even if you want to get some further combos going, you could special summon your Ancient Gear Wyvern and activate its effect. Since when it's special summoned, you can add 1 Ancient Gear card from your deck to your hand, except Ancient Gear Wyvern. So always try to consider just a few different ways. But Ancient Gear Howitzer is a card that you cannot get in the actual structure deck, but they're not very expensive. You could go on eBay or go to your local card shop, and I'm sure they may have a few copies of the singles there for you to pick up. So now the other monster as well that is going to be one of the big drivers behind this deck that is also not included in the Machine Reactor Structure Deck is Ancient Gear Hunting Hound. And this one I run 3 of in this deck. This is basically your polymerization and also another method to burn your opponent. So what it is a level 3 machine monster with 1000 attack and 1000 defense. Its effect is, if this card is normal summoned, inflict 600 damage to your opponent. So right off the bat, you're burning your opponent for 600 points. Come on, not so bad, right? So, if this card attacks, your opponent cannot activate any spell or trap cards until the end of the damage step. Pretty standard for a lot of the Ancient Gear monsters. Once per turn, you can fusion summon 1 Ancient Gear fusion monster from your extra deck using monsters from your hand or field as fusion materials. There we go. That is the big deal with this card right here. So you want to see this card in your hand as soon as possible, or try and get this card in your hand either through Ancient Gear Wyvern or any type of monster like that allows you to search. So that one's pretty crucial. And the other monster as well that's pretty useful in this deck, that is just, for me, sometimes it could be the ultimate game changer just from sheer power. It is Chaos Ancient Gear Giant, the level 10 machine fusion monster, 4500 attack, 3000 defense. It does cost a lot to summon in terms of monster power. It requires 4 Ancient Gear monsters. Now its effect is must be fusion summoned and cannot be special summoned by other ways, and it's also unaffected by spell or trap cards. Your opponent's monsters cannot activate their effects during the battle phase. This card can attack all monsters your opponent controls once each. If this card attacks a defense position monster, inflict piercing battle damage to your opponent. So just a monster. Now the question that I get is, okay, it requires 4 Ancient Gear monsters. Holy cow, how am I going to make that happen in a quick and effective way? So how I end up doing it is you want to have a certain setup in your hand where really you at least want to have 2 Ancient Gear monsters at least. One of which is hopefully you could get an Ancient Gear Hunting Hound in your hand at the time. And hopefully you could even end up with a card like Ancient Gear Wyvern, where you'll be able to search. Now here's why. Say if you end up with just an Ancient Gear Wyvern in your hand and an Ancient Gear Hunting Hound. If you have both of those, what you'd be able to do is use your Ancient Gear Wyvern to use its effect after you normal summon it to search out an Ancient Gear box. Now, if you're not familiar with the Ancient Gear box, its effect is if this card is added from the deck or graveyard to your hand, except by drawing it, you can add 1 Earth Machine type monster with 1500 attack and or defense from your deck to your hand, except Ancient Gear box. So what that does is, once you add that Ancient Gear box to your hand, you could basically search out your Ancient Gear gadget and also bring that to your hand. So already, now you have 4 Ancient Gear monsters. 1's on the field, and you got 3 in your hand. So what this does is it really sets you up for your next turn, in which case you would then be able to summon your Ancient Gear Hunting Hound, activate its effect. You already have Ancient Gear Hunting Hound on the field then, and Gearbox and Gear Gadget, and hopefully you'll have at least 1 more card in your hand that's an Ancient Gear monster, because I'm assuming that after that turn your Ancient Gear Wyvern may not have survived, because it's only got a 1700 attack. So, but if that card's still on the field, even better. Then you're able to use 4 of these monsters to really get things rocking and rolling. Now that is not necessarily the most ideal situation because that takes 2 turns. So what you want to try to do to get things going even faster in 1 turn is potentially end up with an Ancient Gear Catapult card and also a Gear Town card in your opening hand. Now that would be the ideal situation, because what Gear Town does is when it is destroyed and sent to the graveyard, you can special summon 1 Ancient Gear monster from your hand, deck, or graveyard. And what Ancient Gear Catapult does is allow you to target 1 face-up card you control and destroy it. Then you can special summon 1 Ancient Gear monster from your deck, ignoring its summoning conditions. So basically this is a gets +2 monsters out on your field. Doesn't matter what their requirements are, get them out there as far as tributes go. So what this would then end up doing is setting you up to special summon an Ancient Gear Wyvern, allowing you to do that same combo that I was just mentioning, getting that Ancient Gear box and Ancient Gear gadget off of the effect of getting the Ancient Gear box into your hand. So already you have a special summon Wyvern, then you're able to get that Ancient Gear box into your hand and that Ancient Gear gadget into your hand, and you could use that second special summon then to special summon your Ancient Gear Hunting Hound. Now granted, since it's not normal summoned and since it is special summoned, you don't get to burn your opponent for the 600 life points from its initial effect, but still, you get it on the field. And how your field would at least be looking is your Ancient Gear Hunting Hound on there, your Ancient Gear Wyvern, so you got 2 the Ancient Gear monsters on the field, and then you'll have at least 2 in the hand because you'll have Ancient Gear Box and Ancient Gear Gadget in your hand. So boom, there you go, you got 4 monsters. Then you just go ahead and activate Ancient Gear Hunting Hound's effect for that polymerization, and that's how you end up getting your Chaos Ancient Gear Giant onto the field within that 1 turn. Now this could happen at any turn as long as you have a Gear Town and as long as you have a Ancient Gear Catapult as well in your hand. And of course you don't want to have any monsters on the field when you're activating this, otherwise Ancient Gear Catapult will not work, because remember that is the prerequisite involved. So that is just another way to end up getting your giant boss monster out there onto the field. Now you could take things a step further And at least with the current format, how we don't have link summoning yet, that's going to throw a whole new wrench into how you're going to plan your strategy. But running multiple copies of Gold Gadget and Silver Gadget in the deck as well allows you to set up a few good plays with some Xyz summoning. And there's a few options, one of which is to Xyz summon your Gear Gigant X, which, if you don't remember its effect, it requires 2 level 4 machine-type monsters. Once per turn, you can detach 1 Xyz material from this card and add 1 level 4 or lower machine-type monster from your deck or graveyard to your hand. When this card leaves the field, you can target 1 level 3 or lower Gear monster in your graveyard and special summon that target. So, this is just another method to potentially even search out your Ancient Gear box and run that Ancient Gear Gadget combo where you're able to get those 2 cards in your hand as well. Or potentially, if you're missing out on your Ancient Gear Hunting Hound, you could always use this Xyz monster to search out your Ancient Gear Hunting Hound. So there's multiple methods to do the searching. And depending on what your hand is looking like in your first turn, where you may have a Silver or Gold Gadget and 1 other level 4 machine-type monster, like, say, Ancient Gear Wyvern. I mean, the combinations are pretty good with these. But yeah, you could use your Ancient Gear Gigant, your Gear Gigant X to get out a few more of your Ancient Gear monsters. So the other Xyz monster that I'd like to take a look at too, potentially if you already have your Chaos Ancient Gear Giant out on the field and you're on to your next turn and you potentially have a Gold Gadget or a Silver Gadget and 1 other level 4 monster as well, you could go for a Heavy Armored Train Iron Wolf. This one is a freaking beast, because what this does, it's a rank 4 Xyz monster, 2200 attack, 2200 defense. It requires 2 level 4 machine-type monsters. Once per turn, you can attach 1 Xyz material from this card, then target 1 machine-type monster you control. This turn, it can attack your opponent directly. Also, other monsters cannot attack. So, and also too, its other effect is if this card in your possession is destroyed by an opponent's card, by battle or card effect, and sent to your graveyard, you can add 1 level 4 machine-type monster from your deck to your hand. So you could already get another Ancient Gear Wyvern out if this card ends up getting destroyed. So again, this card is really good. So what you want to do is utilize your Heavy Armored Train Iron Wolf's effect when you discard your 1 Xyz material to activate it. Target your Chaos Ancient Gear Giant. It's got 4500 attack, and yeah, it's the only monster that can attack this turn, but you're dealing 4500 direct damage to your opponent, and that could be the difference between ending a game in 1 turn and it could just change the whole scenario and just change the whole game. So that's a lot of the basic combos that I wanted to discuss, at least with regarding an Ancient Gear deck. I know there's plenty more, and there's a ton of different ways to do a lot of what I just described. There's more ways than one, and I know that I'm sure there's a few of you out there who are getting heavily involved with Ancient Gear decks right now who probably have much better strategies than this, but these are just some of the basics, and they can be utilized in quite a few situations. So, if there's anything that you want to add, or if there's anything down the road as far as maybe potential strategy or other potential basic combos that you want me to discuss, reach out on Twitter at YuGiOh Deck Talk. It's all one word, at YuGiOh Deck Talk, and I'll be happy to bring it up in an upcoming episode. So with that, thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you next time. Take care.